So, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics, and you can't see it, podcast. And we're going ahead with Don't Split the Difference. Yeah, I just knew the fucking title of the book. Something that that isn't the case that often, to be honest. But we will go straight ahead, and we will finish this one today, which is nice, which is good, which is great. And yeah. So chapter 8, guarantee execution. Negotiators have to be decision architects. They have to dynamically and adaptively design the verbal and non-verbal elements of the negotiation to gain both consent and execution. Yes is nothing about how. Without enough of the right how questions, you can read and shape the negotiation environment in such a way that you'll eventually get to the answer you want to hear. The trick to how question is that they are gentle and graceful ways to say no and guide your counterpart to develop a better solution, your solution. A gentle how or no invites collaborating and leaves your counterpart with a feeling of having been treated with respect. Besides saying no, the other key benefit of asking how is that it forces your counterpart to consider and explain a deal will be implemented. By making your counterparts articulate implementation in their own words, your carefully calibrated how questions will convince them that the final solution is their idea, and that's crucial. People always make more effort to implement a solution when they think it's theirs. And this is actually something that I've been talking about before as well, and it totally makes sense. You know, if it's your thing, if it's your idea, if it's your business, if it's your shop, if it's your restaurant, you always think about it differently than if it's their job, their shop, or their restaurant, or their business, or their thought. It totally makes sense because it is always the thing, or also the thing with, I kind of think that I've already said this, but maybe you haven't gone through the second part of this book, so this is actually the third one. And so totally feel free to check out the other twos to really get along with me and just really get the whole summary. Or you just go to the paulminers.com website and go through the summary. No, sorry. You go to the samuelthomasdavis.com website and go through the summary on your own, which is totally also a great way to get a lot of knowledge. But yeah, or if you're just watching this as a YouTube video, feel totally free to check out the podcast episode of this exact episode. So this episode will be exactly translated into a podcast so that you can actually listen to it while you're doing something else, which is, at my point of view, definitely a great thing, especially if you're on the go, because all these podcast episodes aren't that big in terms of their data. So you won't just waste a lot of your mobile data, but just watching my shit, which is totally great. So there are some kind of 20 MB or 30 MB between these two, which is, totally fine for, you have to think about it, half an hour of talking. It's just really good, I think. So, there are two key questions you can ask to push your counterparts to think they are defining success their way. How will we know we are on track, and how will we address things if we find we are off track? When they answer, you summarize their answer. When they answer, you summarize their answer until you get a "that's right," and then you'll know they have bought in. Be wary of two telling signs that your counterpart doesn't believe in the idea is theirs. When they say "you're right," it's often a good indicator they are not vested in what is being discussed. When you push for implementation and they say "I'll try," be aware, it really means "I plan to fail." When you hear either of the both, dive back into with calibrated how questions until they define the terms of success implementation in their own voice. Follow up with summarizing what they have said to get a "that's right." You have to be aware of behind the table or level 2 players, that is, parties that are not directly involved but who can help implement agreements they like and block ones they don't. Below are tactics, tools, and methods for using subtle verbal and nonverbal forms of communication to understand and modify the mental states of your counterpart. The first one is the 7-38-55% rule. Albert Mehrabian, whatever, created the 7-38-55 rule that is only 7% of a message is based on the words, while 38% comes from the tone of voice and 55% from the speaker's body language and face. Totally makes sense, because a lot of the things we're communicating are actually communicated through our body language, and I would even consider, they already said it, your face, totally, because it's also the same thing with job interviews and the same thing with actually meeting other people. You can definitely see how they're feeling, if you like them, if you want them in your company. If you just look at them and they will come up to you and you just look at them and just see through their body language if you like them or not. It is definitely some kind of crazy, but it kind of makes also sense if you just put it into really kind of early days. We just had to know how certain people are, what are they up to by their body language, because I think, couldn't really rely on what they spoke, because I think often they, didn't really spoke the same language as we are. So therefore, I hope you get what I mean. I kind of don't do it myself, but I think it's the same thing with animals. Back in the days, there were, at my point of view, I think, and I hope totally, there were so many animals and so many predators that, might have killed us, and they don't speak. So I think this makes sense, that we just know how certain creatures and certain people as well, just feel, or what they're up to, just by their body language. So pay very close attention to tone and body language to make sure they match up with to the literal meaning of the words. If they don't align, it's quite possible that the speaker is lying or at least unconvinced. When someone's tone of voice or body language does not align with the meaning of the words they say, use labels to discover the source of the incongruence. Labels, which is the thing that we were talking about in the last episodes, which is basically giving feelings and or acts, and I think therefore also body language, a name. Being like, you seem to feel just really bad, do you? And then you just give them quite the opportunity to understand themselves, which is quite interesting. And I do so much love all these books who just talk about how to actually communicate with people, how to actually deal with people, how people are actually acting, why they're acting like this, and actually trying it out then. This is the most funny part about it, just going outside and just seeing or looking at people, just kind of thinking like, okay, how they're feeling, what might they just think, and not just trying out what your verbal communication can do to the people, like, this labeling or this how questions. And I'm totally into this, and I think this is just great, because you can use it. And it's, pretty simple and pretty easy to use, and everybody could do it. It's not like when you just, read a book about rocket science, then it might be a little bit more complicated to actually try out what you actually just read, also in terms of the money, but rather in terms of you actually not, you're not quite able to have a fucking rocket. So when someone's tone of voice or body language doesn't align with the meaning of the fucking have I read this. So recognizing the incongruence and gently dealing with it through a label will make the other party feel respected. Consequently, your relationship of trust will be improved. The second one is the rule of three. The rule of three is simply getting the other guy to agree the same thing 3 times in the same conversation. This pretty much reminds me on the yes theory, which is, I think there's actually a YouTube channel called Yes Theory, but it is basically the whole yes saying thing, which means that if you just, talk to a person, you just move them, or you just force them in a positive way to just say yes a lot of times, they will say yes more often than if they just said no once in a row. Which means that if you just go up to somebody and tell them or ask them, do you know what time it is? Do do you know how this and that is? Do you know where the next restaurant is? And then afterwards being like, could I get your telephone number? Would actually be a pretty great way to do this. And actually, if I'm thinking just about it, this was actually one of the first ever videos, I think, that I translated with the whole, that I transcripted on Instagram, I think, or general social media, which is totally quite a funny thing. I'm not sure. So the rule of 3 is simply getting the other guy to agree the same thing 3 times in the same conversation. The first time they agree to something or give you a commitment, that's number 1. For number 2, you might label or summarize what they said so they answer that's right. And number 3 could be a calibrated how or what question about implementation and ask them to explain what will constitute success. Something like, what do we do if we get off track? The 3 times might also be just the same calibrated question phrased 3 different ways, like, what's the biggest challenge you faced? What are we up against here? What do you see as being the most difficult thing to get around? The third one is the Pinocchio effect. In a study of the components of lying, Harvard Business School professor Deepak Malhotra, if he is called like this, I don't even know if it's a rolled R, never mind. And his co-authors found that on average liars use more words than truth tellers and use far more third-person pronouns. They start talking about him, her, it, one, they, and their rather than I, in order to put some distance between themselves and the lie. Moreover, they discovered that liars tend to speak in more complex sentences in an attempt to win over their suspicious counterparts. The researchers dubbed this the Pinocchio effect because, just like Pinocchio's nose, the number of words grew along with the lie. The more in love your counterpart is with I, me, and my, the less important they are. Controversially, the harder it is to get a first-person pronoun out of a negotiator's mouth, the more important they are. Well, this is always so interesting for me, and I'm just thinking about if I actually should read about more. Maybe this was even one of the reasons why I liked How to Win Friends and Influence People so much, because there were actual tips in it on how to actually, pretty much deal with people and how to become more friends and how to be more likable. I think this is actually one of the reasons why I liked it so much, that you actually can get something out of it immediately, and that is just something that I seem to like. I just seem to like to communicate with other people and also just be conscious about how I communicate with people. And the funny thing is, we have a subject in school which is called communication design, and therefore we just talk about how to communicate in terms of your design and words, for example, but not really like also like, your really verbal words, but, more like, the design way and what this thing means and why just some advertising agencies or why some agencies or design agencies in general, use certain things or certain words or certain sujets to actually make their product or actually advertise their product, which is often quite interesting, even though I have to say that sometimes it's definitely difficult. For example, the whole semantics thing, I think, it's totally the same in English as well, is fucking hard. It's pretty difficult to first of all understand, and second of all to just use, I think, but the thing is, okay, if you understand it, you will totally be able to use it, but maybe I just would need another definition, or I didn't just get it, or I don't know, it's difficult. It's pretty difficult subject at my point of view, because often it is really philosophical and a lot of just outlandish words or words you have never heard before. This quite makes it pretty difficult to just, for me at least, to just understand it. So the Chris discount. People are often tired of being hammered with their own name. So take a different tag and use your own name. Doing so creates a dynamic of forced empathy. It makes the other side see you as a person. How to get your counterparts to bid against themselves. The best way to get your counterparts to lower their demands is to say no using how questions. These indirect ways of saying no won't shut down your counterpart the way a blunt, price-piercing no would. Chris has found that you can actually express no 4 times before actually saying the word. The first step in the no series is the old standby, how am I supposed to do that? You have to deliver it in a differential way so it becomes a request for help. Properly delivered, it invites the other side to participate in your dilemma and solve it with a better offer. After that, some version of your offer is very generous. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for me is an elegant second way to say no. This well-tested response avoids making a counter-offer and the use of generous natures and your counterpart to live up to words. The I am sorry also softens the no and builds empathy. Then you can use something like I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I just can't do that. It's a little more direct and the can't do that doesn't create double duty. By expressing an inability to perform, it can trigger the other side's empathy toward you. I'm sorry, no is a slightly more succinct. It's succinct. Succinct. I think it's actually a, let's see if it's actually a spelling mistake. No, it's actually not. Succinct version for the 4th no. If delivered gently, it barely sounds negative at all. If you have to go further, of course, no is the last and most direct way. Verbally, it should be delivered with a downward inflection and a tone of regard. It's not meant to be no, like in caps and really and bold and whatever. Yeah. So is the yes real or counterfeit? Test it with the rule of 3. Use calibrated questions, summaries and labels to get a counterpart to reaffirm the agreement at least 3 times. It's really hard to repeatedly lie or fake conviction. A person's use of pronouns offers deep insights into his or her relative authority. If you're hearing a lot of I, me and my, the real power to decide probably lies elsewhere. Picking up a lot of we, they, and them, it's more likely you're dealing directly with a savvy decision maker keeping his options open. Savvy, with double V. I think, are we going to go through it? Yeah, we can get through it, I think. Actually, a pretty long one, I think. Actually, we just passed it. The bargain. Yeah, the bargain hard. When you feel you're being dragged into a haggle, you can detour the conversation to the non-monetary issues that make any final price work. You can do this directly by saying in an encouraging tone of voice, let's put price off to the side for a moment and talk about what would make this a good deal. Or you could go at it more obliquely by asking, what else would you be able to offer to make it a good price for me? And if the other side pushes you to go first, wriggle from his grip, instead of naming a price, allude to an incredibly high number that someone else might charge. When a negotiation is far more resolution and going nowhere fast, you need to shake things up and get your counterpart out of their rigid mindset. When you want to flip a dubious counterpart to your side, ask them why would you do that, but in a way that favors you. Okay. So if you are working to lure, I think it's lure. Tempt a person or animal to do something or to go somewhere, especially by offering some form of reward. I think it's lure. a client away from a competitor, you might say, why would you ever do business with me, and why would you ever change from your existing supplier? They are great. In these questions, the why coaxes your counterpart into working for you. Using the first person singular pronoun is another great way to set a boundary without escalating into confrontation. When you say, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, the word I strategically focuses your counterpart's attention onto you long enough for you to make a point. When you want to counteract unproductive statements from your counterpart, you can say, I feel X when you X because X, and that demands a time out from the other person. I feel bad when you shout because it reminds me on my mother. Yeah. So once you're clear on what your bottom line is, you have to be willing to walk away. Never be needy for a deal. The person across the table is never the problem, the unsolved issue is. And then last but not least, the Ackerman model. The Ackerman model is an offer-counter-offer method, but it is an effective system for beating the usual lackluster bargaining dynamic, which has the predictable results of meeting in the middle. The systemized and easy to remember process has only 6 steps, and that's actually the thing, I think. Often it really results into just being in the middle of both offers, but I'm really looking forward to see what he says. So the systemized and easy to remember process has only 6 steps. Set your target price, your goal, set your first offer at 65% of your target offer, calculate 3 raises of decreasing increments to 85, 95 and 100%. Use lots of empathy in different ways of saying no to get the other side to counter before you increase your offer. When calculating the final amount, use precise, non-round numbers like say 37,893 rather than 38,000. It gives the number credibility and weight. And on your final number, throw in a monetary item that they probably don't want to show you're at your limit. Well, makes sense somehow. I really like the last one, which makes sense that you actually just say, okay, yeah, I give you that, and they are like, I actually don't want it, but this really just shows that they just have nothing else. Even though the thing is, they definitely don't know what you would like. You would like maybe a better price and so on, but you can do that. It just makes sense. So identify your counterpart's negotiation style. Once you know whether they are accommodator, assertive, or analyst, you'll know the correct way to approach them. Prepare an Ackerman plan before you head into the weeds of bargaining, and you'll need a plan including extreme anchors, calibrated questions, and well-defined offers. Remember, 65, 85, 95, and 100%. Decreasing raises and ending on non-round numbers will get your counterpart to believe that he is squeezing you for all you're worth when you're really getting to the number you want. Chapter 10, Find the Black Swan. Every case is new. We must let what we know our known knows. What the fuck? So guide us but not blind us to what we do not know. As a negotiator, you should always be aware of which side at any given moment feels they have the most to lose if negotiation collapse. To get leverage, persuade your counterpart that they have something real to lose if the deal falls through, which is actually they kinda double what they say. So they kinda also the thing above. There was some paragraph that they actually were talking about before, I think, and this also as well. So people actually do really hate losing things, which makes sense. And I've been speaking about it in the last time but I'll recap it a little bit. So you just have to look at us as the really ancient version of ourselves, and then it just makes sense that if we just lose the really one apple we have, and without them we would die, and just losing them is really fucked up. To get leverage, pursue your counterpart. I've read that. At taxonomic level, there are 3 kinds of leverage: positive, negative, and normative. Positive leverage is quite simply your ability as a negotiator to provide or withhold things that your counterpart wants when they say that you have power. Negative leverage is what most civilians picture when they hear the word leverage. It's a negotiator's ability to make his counterpart suffer. Normative leverage is using the other party's norms and standards to advance your position. If you can show inconsistencies between their beliefs and their actions, you have normative leverage. Discovering the black swan that give you normative valuation can be as easy as asking what your counterpart believes and listening openly. You want to see what language they speak and speak it back to them. In their book, Negotiation Genius, Harvard Business School professor Deepak Malhotra and Max H. Besserman provide a look at the common reasons negotiators mistakenly call their counterparts crazy. So, mistake 1. They are ill-informed. People operating with incomplete information appear crazy to those who have different information. Your job when faced with someone like this in a negotiation is to discover what they do not know and supply that information. Mistake 2. They are constrained. In any negotiation where your counterpart is acting wobbly, there exists a distinct possibility that they have things they can't do but aren't eager to reveal. The mistake 3 is they have other interests. These people are simply complying with needs and desires that you don't yet understand, what the world looks like to them based on their own set of rules. The best techniques for flushing out black swans and exploiting them. Let what you know, Let what you know, your known knows, your known knowns guide you, but not blind you. Guide you, but not blind you. Every case is new, so remain flexible and adaptable. So this is actually the exact same paragraph like above, quite totally in the exact same position like, only above. But yeah, so black swans are leverage multipliers. Remember the 3 types of leverage. Positive, the ability to give someone what they want. Negative, the ability to hurt someone. And normative, using your counterpart's norms to bring them around. For me, by the way, it really feels like the last one, the normative one, is the best one. Because kinda argumenting with the beliefs of someone else totally for me makes sense. And totally also makes sense for me that it works. So work to understand the other side's religion. Digging into worldviews inherently implies moving beyond the negotiation table and into the life, emotional and otherwise, of your counterpart, and that's where black swan live. Exploit the similarity principle. People are more apt to concede to someone they share a cultural similarity with, so dig what makes them tick and show that you share common ground. And then the recommended reading. So this was actually it with this book. It is an incredible book, even though I really have to be honest with you, I didn't get much of it because I was only reading. I tried to read as great as possible. The last few days, I didn't feel as well, to be honest. And so therefore, I didn't get a lot of it. Maybe I will watch another YouTube video on it and in general about negotiation because it sounds for me to be really interesting. And but I hope that you got something out of it. And I hope I just at least read it in such a way that you pretty much like it. And if it was way too fast, you can definitely also just, it depends on the player you're using. But sometimes you can actually halve the speed where I am, or the half the play speed of the podcast, so that I'm actually a little bit slower and that you might understand everything a little bit better. But yeah. But it is actually a great book with a lot of really great insights and a lot of really great insights and what actually do I want to say, and what is the word? And tips, right, and advice. So if you like Never Split the Difference, you may also enjoy the following books: How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Start with Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek, and To Sell is Human, The Surprising Truth About Moving Others by Dan H. Pink. All three of them I've been actually doing podcast episodes or general episodes on this channel. So therefore, I would really invite you to check them out. Maybe you can find them, maybe not, I hope. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day, or will have a wonderful day, or a night, whatever. And yeah, do not forget about your legacy and your giving back to the other people. But I still just wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and success. That being said, I see you.